Is it? No, no boogers. It's gonna work. Okay. I have wanted a tongue piercing ever since I was, I think I'm like 12, 13. I'm now 21, so it's been a while. But it is kind of weird to think that a 12-year-old would want a tongue piercing, especially where I come from. I come from Slovenia, a very small village in Slovenia, Petroce, if anybody knows, represent. All my friends were like, yeah, you know, when I'm gonna be like 14, 15, I'm gonna get belly button piercing. And I was always like, no, I want a tongue piercing. And I remember very clearly my friends being like, oh, what? Why? But that's it. It's gonna stay if it wants or not. Anyways, and I think I got the idea for a tongue piercing from a family friend's friend. We went on holiday with some of our like family friends, and they had a daughter with whom me and my sister were of course friends, and she had a friend there, and the girl had like I think she had a lip piercing here. She's such a rebel, she's so like cool. I was like, she has a lip piercing, I want a tongue piercing. So that's how it all started, I think, and I've wanted it ever since. I never had the guts to do it at home back in Slovenia, partly because I lived with my parents and they would probably disown me if I would get a piercing or a tattoo, which I did get actually. And then of course I moved here to the Netherlands where I live now. I was just like, fuck it, I only have one life, let's just do this. And I've wanted it for so long, I want it, so what the heck not. I researched everything, even the like negative and bad stuff about the tongue piercings experiences, which it's for people that have a strong stomach. Yeah, so I researched it. I researched a lot of places, and Tattoo Bob was one that I liked a lot. This is the whole spiel experience. I of course talked to Devra, and she explained everything to me. I was really concerned that my tongue wasn't long enough, so I was like, can you please check if everything is okay, like if I can have it? She was like, yeah, no problem. I mean, it is a little bit short, and I have a like small bottom jaw, so she told me immediately that she's gonna put a smaller butt on the bottom than on the top, because otherwise it would irritate my bottom jaw. I sat down and she told me the whole procedure. I was like, yeah, I did the research. She said it's very good. It's good if you do research in advance, just so you know that what you're signing up for. Everything was sterilized from the packet, which is what you should of course, you know, beware of. And if it's not sterilized, or if it's not straight from the packet like a new kit, then leave. She kind of explained to me what was gonna happen, like what I could expect. Again, I did prepare a lot, so I watched a lot of videos on YouTube and a lot of research on the internet, so I kind of knew what was gonna happen. But of course, as an experience, I couldn't really know exactly what was going to happen. Yeah, so the first thing she did, she put the tongs on my tongue, and she checked, of course, under my tongue for my vein to see where she was going to pierce and stuff like that. And I've heard a lot of people say that the tongs hurt a lot. In my case, it did not hurt at all. I think it was just the adrenaline and the excitement that made me not feel pain at all. But it wasn't really that hard clamping. Anyways, it all gets to me. This is happening. It's actually happening. I'm getting my tongue pierced. It went by really quickly. She put the tongs on again, checked it again. She said you can close your eyes if you want to, and I did. I think I did. She took the needle out. I did not see the needle. I saw it after, and I was like, shit, that went through my tongue. And the only thing I remember from the actual like needle going through the tongue, or the pain, anything out of that, the only thing I remember was she put the needle on my tongue. By the time that it got to my brain, that what I was feeling was cold, like the first contact with my tongue was like, oh, that's cold. And by that it was over, and she was like, oh, your tongue is pierced. And I was like, with my tongue out, drooling. I was like, that's it? And she was like, yep, your tongue is pierced. Did it hurt? It's like, No, I didn't. I didn't really. Was I there? So that was it. The thing that I do though remember, like from pain wise, but it wasn't pain, is that so they put the needle through and then they put another like tubey thing that goes along with the needle through so that they can put the piercing through. I do remember that going like through my tongue again, but it didn't really hurt. The only thing that I felt was it going through. And it sounds weird, but it's just because like you're not really used to a sensation, that kind of sensation, or any other sensation aside from taste and like pressure in your tongue. It's such a foreign feeling and sensation to you that you don't really acknowledge the pain, if there is any, which there isn't. In my case, there wasn't. But I did feel that through. And the only way I could describe the feeling is, do you know like a grape? If you have like a really juicy grape, that's very firm, like it's not watery juicy, but it's very like firm and crunchy kind of if you bite into it. So imagine putting a needle through that. Like that's how it felt, kind of. It's weird to describe it, but that's how it felt. So that was my experience, and the tongue was through. I of course had it pierced first with a 20 to 22 millimeter bar, and it was really long. I was really afraid initially, like in the first half an hour, to really like move my tongue and talk too much, because I thought that if I, like bump the piercing against my teeth, or like if I put my tongue out and like it, when I put it back in, if it bumps my teeth, I was afraid that I would feel pain, but I didn't really feel anything. It was mostly because of the adrenaline, I think, and the rush. But it was done. I was done. She was like, okay, this is it, I paid, and we left. I would say the first half hour after getting it pierced, it didn't swell up. It didn't swell up. I was able to talk normally. Of course, like there was a 22 millimeter bar in my tongue, so of course it was awkward. But I also kept I didn't talk that much. I kept it in my mouth. So, innuendo. Starting from the aftercare on, so right after the piercing, that's when crap started going down. So the first day was not bad at all. So the first few hours after getting it, it didn't really swell up that much because I kept talking, and it's still the same to today. As long as you talk a lot, your tongue doesn't really expand to a certain point where, which we will get to that, where it starts to consume your piercing. But yeah, I kept talking, so I kept exercising my tongue. So my tongue didn't really have a chance to be still and like get the shock of it and kind of start to swell up, to react to the piercing. But that evening, and I went back home and I started, rinsing it out with salt water, which is what you should do. Talking about the aftercare, which I do have on my note. That is when crap started getting down, because I didn't use my tongue anymore, so I didn't talk anymore. It swelled up like a bitch. I was not expecting to swell it up. It didn't hurt. Like, that's the thing. It didn't hurt. Because I have heard people, bleed and like they had a lot of pain. In my case, that wasn't the thing. It just swelled up. And the thing is, again, I mentioned that because you're not used to that sensation in your mouth, because you're not used to it, it's foreign to you, and it's like, just like, what the fuck is happening? But yeah, it swelled up a lot. The reason why they put in such a big bar is because when your tongue swells, it has to have space to swell up. So my tongue swelled. Wow, this word though. Swelled up. Is that the right one? I don't know. It swelled up like to its limit. It almost like, at the top of my tongue, I did have like a little nook done by the piercing because it did swell up so much. But that was the first night. The first night was the worst. Again, because of the sensation. And I iced it. I didn't have ice water because I don't have ice cubes. But I did have, one of those blocks that you put into like a cooling bag. I kind of like maneuvered it like around my mouth. So that was the worst part. And then the 2 days after, my tongue was still fairly swollen. But after 3 days, including the night, the swelling went down. Not completely, I would say that the swelling in the first 3 days went down drastically, and then by the end of the first week it was down completely. And then afterwards it's been fine ever since. Well, not really fine ever since. Basically what happened is I kept it in for 2 months. I kept the 20 to 22 millimeter bar in for 1 month. Deborah told me to go back after 1 month to have it changed out because it's very big and clunky, and if you eat, it's very weird, like you bite on it, which I didn't do on the 20 to 22 millimeter bar, but it's just a little bit meh. So I had it changed out for an 18 bar after a month. I had that in for 2 weeks because that one was the most uncomfortable thing ever. It was worse than the 20 to 22 millimeter bar. I bit on that one the most, I mean twice, but it was the worst. I did not like to eat with it because it was all over the place. It was the worst. So after 2 weeks I was like, went back, I was like, sorry, I can't have this anymore, can you change it out? And the thing that happened with me is that another girl changed my piercing the second time around, and I was like, can you go down a size? Meaning go from 18 to 16. She did not go from 18 to 16, she went from 18 to 14. And that is when crap started going down. It felt very snug, but I was like, it's probably just swelling up a little bit because it's, changed. And the first week of having a 14 millimeter bar, it was obviously, as you can expect, going from an 18 to 14. It was the most uncomfortable thing ever. It did not hurt, it was just uncomfortable, and I started getting like a little well on top of my tongue because of the top bud. The thing is that the first week of 14 was bad. The second week was good because I talked a crap load. So again, my tongue exercised, so it didn't really have time to settle into the piercing or piercing into the tongue. The third week and the fourth week, I started feeling like a weird snug feeling, and the snug feeling was that on the bottom part of my tongue, it did not have space to go because it was 14 millimeter and it did not have anywhere to go to expand. So what my tongue did is it started eating my piercing on the bottom side. It really did, like so let me okay, so this was the bottom part of my piercing. This is the bud, and my tongue was right here. So what it did is started to like eat it like this, and it got to a point where I would have to like manually, I guess, push it out of my tongue so that it wouldn't stay inside my tongue. So I was like, well, this is probably not normal. So I went back to Deborah. Not that the other girl was bad, it's just like she drastically went from a size to another size. And I was like, my piercing is being eaten by my tongue. She was like, okay, let's change it back. I was like, but I don't really want the 18 one again. Thinking that I was a 16 going back from 18. I said, it was very clunky, do you have a 17? She said, oh, but you're not a 16, you're a 14 now. So I was like, well, crap. So she changed it to a 16, and the 16 is the one that I have in right now, and it's the best one ever. Yeah. And also, in my case, as I said, my bottom jaw is very small, so I have a smaller bud on the bottom than I do on the top. And I still have the the titanium one in that I've always had. I've always had titanium, and I don't really want to change it to a plastic one, even though I do play with my piercing, which is not a good thing. If you have titanium or stainless steel and you want to play with your piercing, just change it to a plastic one, because it can have detrimental effects and consequences on your gums and on your teeth, which in my case it doesn't. But yeah, just take my advice, please. Now let's get to the advice part. I know I blab a lot. So the first thing I would advise you is why you are choosing to get a tongue piercing. Deciding on if your reasons are there for you or if it's for someone else, because tongue piercings, in all honesty, and this I did not know before I got it done because I didn't do the research before that, people get tongue piercings, to put it straightforward, for oral enjoyment and pleasure, which kind of makes sense, but don't have it done for anyone else. And I'm not just talking about tongue piercings, any body modifications, don't have it done for anyone else. So my first point of advice would be do it because you want to do it and because you really want it. Also, take into consideration with that the consequences that it is going to have on your life. If you work somewhere where it wouldn't be acceptable, then you have to consider that into making your decision whether or not you get a tongue piercing. And if it's something that is unacceptable by your society or by your parents, do take that into consideration. I'm not saying that that should overrule your own personal motivations for getting a tongue piercing or any body modification, but do still take it into consideration. Also, one more thing with that is see kind of if it's going to be noticeable, because with me it's not. If you don't know that I have a tongue piercing, or if I don't tell you that I have a tongue piercing, then you probably won't know that I have one, because I speak in a manner where you don't really see it. So I really would have to like enunciate a lot for someone to see that I have a tongue piercing. Next thing, after you'd made the decision that you are going to go through with this, do your research. Do research on every aspect of it, of the pain, of the experience, of the place that you should go to, the aftercare, the things that might go wrong part, and believe me, you do not want to Google that, but you have to Google that. So really be aware of what you're getting yourself into. It is not at all bad or an awful experience if you do it with someone that is experienced in their field and they know how to treat you normally and well, if they're professional, if they use sterilized things, equipment and stuff like that. Do your research, and I really strongly recommend to really do your research. Next piece of advice is choose your place carefully. If you live somewhere where you don't have a piercing place, or if you only have one or two, research those places. Look on the reviews, see if they're good at it. Don't just go to somewhere because it's convenient for you. Go to somewhere where they are professional about it, where they are very well reviewed, where they have experience on it, and especially where they have experience on doing tongue piercings or any piercings that you're considering getting. Because if you're going to somewhere where they specialize in piercing your ears, they're probably not really that aware of doing tongue piercings or doing them well. Because I've heard a lot of awful stories where shit went wrong with tongue piercings, like piercing certain nerves or veins, or getting infections because they didn't use sterilized equipment. It can go wrong really quickly. So choose your place very carefully. Next thing that you should take into account is the price. So I paid 75 euros, and that might seem like a lot, and it is. Not only did I get a professional to do it, I got extremely well taken care of, and also into the price that you pay for at Tattoo Bob's, you also get not only the jewelry, the piercing, but you also get all of the interchangeable? No. You also get the changes. Like whenever you go back to change it to a smaller size, because you do have to go like from, as I said, from 22 to 18 to 16 to 14, however you go, all of those are free, including the jewelry. So that's all taken into the price, and I think that's a very good price for, you know, professionalism, sterilized environment, good experience, and all of the jewelry. And also, if anything goes wrong, you can always go back and they'll like take care of you for free. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the aftercare. So the aftercare for me, as I said, was very normal, I would say, but do take the advice that your piercer gives you. They might be different, but the general kind of advice is drink a lot of cold things, ice water, ice cubes, chew on the ice cubes or an ice, so that the swelling goes down. If the swelling really does go like cray, then you can take some blood thinners like aspirin to like kind of calm it down, and also if you're experiencing pain, that can calm down the pain as well. Avoid infection. You should rinse it out twice a day with salt water solution, but don't do it more often than twice. That can irritate your piercing and your tongue. Not rinsing it out enough can cause infection. Rinsing it out just enough is going to not only help the swelling and like get rid of any possible infection. But doing it also too much can irritate your piercing, and it can be very uncomfortable, so don't do that as well. So kind of stay in the Goldilocks area. That's pretty much it. So anything cold, blood thinners, but I didn't take any because my pain experience wasn't that bad, so I didn't take any, and it was completely fine with just chilling it, and then rinsing it out with salt solution. So the last thing I want to talk about is how it affects your life. Is there any change? Is there not any change? Right after you get the piercing, or like the first few days and then weeks after you get it pierced, and when you're changing your bar, the first few days in eating, also do your research on and ask your piercer like what they consider is good to avoid eating. My experience when I did my research is that you should stay away from citrus, dairy, and hot things. Citrus, I experienced myself. It is not pleasant, obviously. It's acidic. It's acidic, so if it gets into your piercing, it just stings. So stay away from citrus. Dairy is, well, first of all, I'm vegan, so stay the fuck out of the way from that. Get away. But if you do eat dairy, which please don't, it has live bacteria, so if it gets into your piercing, it can get infected and it can go like crazy really fast. Google it, or not. And then hot things, just because it irritates your piercing, so that's why you should stay to cold things, because it soothes it down rather than hot things that are just gonna irritate it. Also, I've heard conflicting opinions about staying like crunchy food and then soft food. I personally stayed on miso soup for the first few days. I just ate miso soup, like chilled miso soup, like cold miso soup. That was perfectly fine. The thing is that my swelling was kind of big, so I didn't really want to eat anything aside from liquids. But I heard some people enjoyed crunchier foods more rather than soft foods, because it was harder to, because if you have soft food, you still have to maneuver it around your mouth, and if your tongue is swollen, that is going to be painful and like weird. So they prefer to stay to crunchy foods. Now, I don't know, I don't have experience on that. I will say, don't eat noodles, because if you have a 20 or 22 millimeter bar in your mouth and you're trying to eat noodles and get it around your like center of your tongue, that ain't gonna happen, because you're like the noodles are gonna get stuck around. It's really funny. So stay away from noodles. But in my experience, what did I eat after that? Like, hot things weren't that big of an issue for me. I mean, I didn't eat it scalding hot, and I didn't drink hot tea or coffee. Oh yeah, by the way, stay away from like hot drinks also. Also, another thing, does it affect your speech pattern? A lot of people developed a slur. I didn't, like long term I didn't. I do remember the first few days because I didn't want to move my tongue too much because it was uncomfortable. I do remember like that I kept my tongue in my mouth, of course, for the majority of the time, so I did kind of slur, but not really. And then when I had it changed to an 18 millimeter, the lady didn't know to change my bottom. Like I told her, but she didn't do it. Like she put the normal size ball on the bottom, and that was just uncomfortable for me. So I did like not slur, but it kind of was like weird. But it shouldn't really affect it long term, even if you have a small jaw like I do. And then the capability, like, are you unable to do something? Are you not able to do something? For me, nothing has changed. Eating is enjoyable still, normal, nothing's wrong. Then there's also the part about the sexual thing, which I haven't experienced yet. But I heard that it's not really that big of a deal. Actually, I heard that it's better for girls than it is for guys. Nothing that I've done before I can't do now, if that makes sense. If I have ever gotten sick of it or like I wanted to get rid of it, not really. The thing is that I play with my piercing quite a lot because I'm a stressy kind of person, so when I don't do anything like physically, I tend to play with my tongue piercing, and it just gets a little bit like irritated, as any piercing would if you like nudge with it a lot. So sometimes it just gets a little bit like uncomfortable and weird, But aside from that, I've never wanted. I love it. I think I'm gonna keep it in for a really long time because I've wanted it for such a long time. But that's pretty much it. Yeah, if you have any more questions, ask me, no problem. I'll answer them. Yeah, I don't fucking care if my neighbors see me. Hello, how you doing?